everybody. Welcome to another episode of Calculated Nonsense. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Paul.
All right, and we are back again with part 2 of our review discussion about the FX/Hulu show Devs from Alex Garland. But before we get into that, let's do a really quick, because we've got a lot to talk about. Really quick, what's happened since last week? Right. All right, Paul. What anything cool since? Well,
I mean,
technically since filming, it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So what's happened? Do
we went
anything cool?
We went camping at Scales Lake.
Yeah.
Fantastic place.
It's supposed to be Maine, though, right?
It was supposed to, yeah.
Man.
But COVID and stuff like that. But we went hiking. We did a hiking and mountain bike riding and swimming in the lake, and we took the dog with us and everything too.
Nice.
So he freaking loved it.
Oh, I bet.
Every moment of it. He would go on a 2-mile hike in the morning. He would come back for breakfast. Go on like a 3-mile hike in the afternoon. Come back for lunch, and then another 3-mile hike, and then come back for dinner, and then a 2-mile walk from the poop, and then he was exhausted.
I bet.
And normally he's just like all wild and crazy, but this time he was worn out, which is awesome.
That's good.
What about you? How's been your 2 weeks?
Haven't done much. Just a lot of work. A lot of throwing axes. Probably the biggest thing. So we've been doing this. What started out as what was called Tournament of States became a global team throwdown as more countries got into it. That's wrapped up, at least for us. We made it to the finals. We were the number 4 team in the world. So the top 8 was Western Canada, Philly. Actually, I'm sorry. It was Western Canada, North Carolina, Philly, Indiana, and then number 5 was Ontario, Canada's team. 6 was Texas. 7th was New Jersey, and then 8th was Ireland.
Whoa!
So it was cool. We beat Ireland in that group. We beat. Actually, we beat Ireland in that group. We didn't face a lot of the other ones, but we faced Western Canada, and it went down to like the final. It was like they won by like 2 or 3 points against us, so that's cool.
Oh.
We faced Philly, which we lost to by like 20 points, but it was the closest margin. It's closest that anybody has gotten to beating Philly, which was really good. Philly should have been number 1, but they took an extra week off because they couldn't play. So they were in number 3, and were only behind 2 and 1 in points by like 40 points. And they would have easily, had they had another week, would have scored, into the 200 extra points, and they would have been number 1 by like 150 points. So Philly was the true number 1, and so we faced Ontario in our first finals match, and we lost by 5 points, which was 1 match. It came down. We were tied with the final match to go, and we lost. But it was fun. I do wish we would have won, because we would have gotten to throw against. We would have gotten to throw against Western Canada again, and it would have been really cool if we could have avenged our loss, but we didn't. And so Ontario faced Western Canada so it was last Saturday for our match. They faced again on Sunday. Western Canada, Ontario. Western Canada won to advance to the finals, and then Philly advanced to the finals. So it's Western Canada versus Philly, which will be great. I think Philly's got it in the bag. I think those guys got it in the bag. But yeah, it was cool. So it's cool too, just to be like, we're the number 4 team in the world. We've got a great group of throwers.
Where's that plaque?
We need it. We need one somewhere.
Yeah, we
need to make one up.
We do.
Yeah, it was really cool. There will probably be a second season. It'll totally change, though, in terms of there'll be more than just axe throwing. There'll be, like, different disciplines, like ambidextrous throwing, so right and left-handed.
What?
Underhand into it, 2-spin, 1.5 rotation, knife throwing.
So a growing.
It'll change a lot. I don't know how many of our throwers will return for season 2 because most of them are, I mean, most if not all, are really just dedicated to single rotation axe throwing. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. You can recruit more people too.
Yeah, never know. Surprise. We surprised everybody in the first season, so we'll see how it goes. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
That'll be good to hear. Good to see.
So 2 cool things for what's happened since we last filmed, but to you guys it'll look like we just put these videos up back to back. But it's really been 2 weeks since we've talked about this last. So let's dive right into Devs episode 5 through 8, and then we'll talk about implications and our theories. So let's jump right into it.
Okay, welcome back. And we're going to do a little bit of picking up where we left off on episode 4. Episode 4, we left off with Jamie presumably dying at the hands of Kenton because Lily got arrested and got put to that psychiatric hospital. So it looks like Jamie's going to die. Kenton's attacking him in the apartment, and Lily gets put in the hospital, and Lily's also predicted to die by the computer. Mm-hmm. And also, Lyndon is fired from Devs. And that is the end of episode 4, and then we move on into episode 5, which is action-packed for the rest of this whole thing. Like, so many things happen from 5 to 8 that it's ridiculous. So I think we should do a spoiler countdown. Did we do that yet?
Okay. No, we haven't done that. So we'll do our 5-second spoiler countdown, and we're gonna dive in head first into shallow water. So let's do it.
Which we're not advocating.
Not advocating.
Do not.
But if you can't do it, you shouldn't dive at all because you're not very good. 5-second countdown. Okay, so like Paul said, episode 5 packed full of stuff. It's like the penultimate episode before the second to last episode.
Yeah, so, everything goes down within 5 to 8. Like, I didn't realize I didn't think of the show as a slow burn, but when you get to 5 through 8, it's like, oh my gosh, so much stuff happens that the beginning was literally just set up. Sure. And then 5 through 8 is where it really.
It's kind of like, it really is an 8-hour-long movie. I mean, you can really say that, like, episodes 1 through 3 were kind of like the first act. 4 slow burns into 5, 6, which is Act 2, and then 7 and 8 is really
its own separate
the final act of the what
crescendo,
would typically be
the crescendo,
the movie. So, we start off. So Lily's been arrested. She's in her mental institution now. Jamie is not dead.
Not dead.
He's just being tortured by Kenton, fingers broken, stuff like that.
Backwards.
It was really rough. But he lives.
Yep.
Kenton doesn't kill him. Just puts the fear of Kenton into it.
That's true.
But so it's kind of at that point Jamie realizes I gotta get Lily out of there. Mm-hmm. We've got to figure out what's going on. Jamie rescues Lily, and they go directly to Forrest to figure out what's going on. But I think before that, kind of in between him saving Lily and them getting to Forrest's house, we do have a little exchange between Lyndon and Stuart.
Yep. Stuart lives in a van down
by
under an underpass.
Yep. So pretty much down by the river, which is really neat because these guys who work for devs make a ridiculous amount of money. They don't work normal schedules, so he's never home. So he lives in literally like this 1960s Winnebago.
Yep.
That's parked under an underpass or an overpass. So,
Yep.
So Stuart gets home. Lyndon's there. They have a conversation about
Yep.
about him being there. He's not supposed to be there. They'll see him in the system will show that Lyndon was there. And he's like, oh, I covered my tracks really well. And I'm like, bud, you can't cover your tracks from a quantum computer.
No, you can't.
It's going to predict it. But Lyndon is there basically to talk to Stuart about getting back into devs.
Because it's like his life's, or Lyndon's life work.
And Lyndon's 12.
Yeah.
Like, 12 years old, super genius. And his life's work is devs. Like, can't just stop now.
Can't
Nothing
just
he
quit.
does from here on out is going to mean anything compared to devs.
Yeah, it's true.
So he realizes the only thing I can do, or the person I need to talk to that's going to get me back in is Katie.
Yep.
And so I need to go talk to Katie.
Yep.
Then we arrive at Forrest's house where Lily and Jamie are there to...
Confront Forrest about it.
Yeah. And here's where we find out that old Forrest is maybe moved on a little bit from his wife.
Mm-hmm.
But not his daughter. Just
Not his daughter.
we find out that Katie and Forrest are...
An item.
Yeah, and I didn't
Sleeping
together. They're together in some way, shape, or form, but they knew they were coming.
Yep.
They were ready for it, because they've seen it. And Forrest explains to Lily that Katie is going to tell her everything. In my head, in my eyes, that also makes me think that Forrest is maybe a little bit like Steve Jobs. He's a poser. Katie is more like Wozniak, and we did everything. So Forrest and Jamie head outside, and so Jamie also he relates everything that's happened to him back to Forrest. Like, there's no way you didn't know Kenton was doing all this stuff to us. So I hate you. Don't talk to me. And Forrest doesn't know. Because the only thing Forrest cares about is watching videos of his daughter.
Yeah.
And not accepting responsibility for her death.
Yep.
But, so, Jamie and Forrest, they play Frisbee out on the road while Kenton watches from afar.
In a car.
Doing Deus knows what in that car. We'll talk about Deus in a minute. But then we go to
Katie and
Lily, and this is where Katie tells Lily everything that they do at Devs, basically. That they've developed a system that can predict
the future.
Predict the past and predict the future.
Yeah.
Because who did cause and effect?
What do you mean?
Every force has an equal and opposite.
Newton.
Yeah. Sorry. Gosh, my brain went blank for a second. So
it's only one of the laws. It's fine.
Yeah. So basically, Katie's explaining, Newton's laws are in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Cause and effect. If everything we do. So if I push this microphone and I let it go, it rocks back. Well, it rocks back because I pushed the microphone. And I pushed the microphone because I needed an example to show you guys in the video. And I needed an example to show you guys in the video so you could better understand what we're talking about.
Every effect.
Every effect has a cause.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have the effect, you can trace back the cause. You've predicted the past.
Mm-hmm. Or you go the other way.
Or if you know what the cause is, you can predict the future. And that's what this system ultimately does. And so she explains that to Lily, and then she tries to explain to Lily that we've only been able to predict up until tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the reason that we've only been able to predict up until tomorrow is because you, Lily, do something that ultimately breaks the laws of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Or so we think.
Yep.
And we need to know what that is.
We're going to find out what that is.
Or we're going to find out, yeah. And,
She has a hard time believing that.
yeah.
And they come out. Lily comes outside. She thinks that Katie's just talking crazy.
Yeah.
And Jamie and her get in the car and they go
leave.
back to her apartment.
Yeah, go back to the apartment. And this is where things really kind of hit the fan.
Yeah.
You know, they wake up the next morning. Jamie goes to fix breakfast. We see Kenton arriving at the apartment. We see the same hobo that we've seen all
This whole time.
all series, still sleeping on the front steps. And but I think he sees Kenton's car drive up.
Mhm.
So he's just an observant little hobo, hanging around on the front porch steps. We see Kenton arrive at their apartment. He goes in the back way and goes upstairs with his gun, knocks on the door. Jamie unfortunately answers that door to an immediate gunshot to the chest,
Mm-hmm.
and then multiple gunshots while he's lying on the floor. Lily comes out or sees Jamie kind of crawling, and then sees Kenton again finish him off with two to the head, I believe, and then he goes after
Lily.
Lily.
And she hides.
She
Opens the door and she hides.
knocks the gun away from him at some point, right? Because why not
Yeah.
just shoot her? Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I couldn't remember. All I can remember is like
She smashes him in the face with the
that's right.
thing, and he
Yep.
drops the gun, and then he
then
tries to choke her out on the bed.
He tries to strangle her, and about that time, we see like a
String.
wire
Yeah.
come across from around Kenton's neck, and we see two hands, and he pulls him back, and we see the hobo
Mm-hmm.
that is there miraculously to strangle Kenton until
Yep.
his eyes bleed out, basically.
And the hobo ends up counting in Russian.
Russian, yeah.
Yep.
He starts speaking in Russian, and there you instantly know, oh, this
This-
hobo it must have known Sergei, and he's there to save the day, but we learn very quickly that he wasn't supposed to.
He wasn't supposed to protect Lily because he sits her down, he talks to her.
He just had maybe not like a loving affection, but he had like some affection to stay and protect her after Sergei was gone.
Yeah,
Even though he wasn't supposed to, he was supposed to
head out.
go on to his next Russian
Protection
spy
target,
mission.
whatever.
Yeah. But he gives her a couple options and
He lets Lily go.
lets Lily go. Before she goes, though, actually he leaves first, and
Yep.
she's still in the apartment. And for whatever reason, probably due to like necessity, needing to like stow it in a place that's not like readily visible, she takes Kenton's gun, removes the silencer that was on it, probably just put it in a pocket. 'Cause Lily doesn't seem like the person who's gonna like throw it in like a Louis Vuitton purse or something like that. Maybe like a backpack, like a hipster knapsack or something. But she probably just put it in her jacket pocket or back pocket, something. But takes the gun and heads to Deb's.
Yep.
And then that all happened in the morning. That all happened really quick.
Yep.
So from there we go to Forrest and Katie at Forrest's house.
Yep. In bed with each other.
And they know that this day is the day. They talk about how
Yep.
they've watched it tons
Backwards
of
and
times.
forwards, and even whenever the event happened with Kenton and Lily, they know about it. Because then, Lily's going to leave the house here in about 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Like, they've watched this day and they
Yeah,
pay
they
attention to
know
it
it
all.
down to the minute.
Yep.
And Forrest in the living room. Katie finally comes out, and before she goes, Forrest reminds Katie that, oh yeah, by the way, don't forget Lyndon is in your back seat,
And you got that whole event ahead of you.
and you've got that whole thing ahead of you first. And so We get to the car. Lyndon's in the back seat. Katie's kind of like, "Hey, I know you're back there." She's like, "What?" You see, she knows everything. Like,
Yeah.
They've
They've
watched
watched
these
it.
events backwards and forwards, and the scene with Lyndon and Katie at the dam. It was a really
Pivotal moment. And
epic scene. Like, it was very tough to watch because, like, so basically what ultimately happens is Lyndon makes an attempt to prove the multiverse
the
theory.
yes.
And if by jumping off of the dam,
Well, it's not jumping. It's
Falling.
by balancing.
yeah. Sorry.
Lyndon balances,
Yeah.
and whatever variations in like wind and air pressure and everything like that, quantum
Right.
level of stuff is what would affect
Right.
Lyndon falling
Yep.
or not falling.
Or not falling. Yep. And then what we see is an array of possibilities of what happens. And you see Lyndon falling a lot. You see Lyndon falling backwards. You see Lyndon falling forwards to grab the rail, and Lyndon falling, and you see a ton of different falling sequences. And like, you see somewhere Lyndon lands. You see somewhere Lyndon doesn't land. You see one that Lyndon landed and there's blood everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of Katie having different reactions, walking away. But the one thing we don't see is we don't see a possibility where they both walk away together. So that 100% leads to Lyndon is dead.
Yes. Lyndon dies.
But then we continue on with the day.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
really it.
she's
And that's it.
Katie's unfazed. She just well, maybe not unfazed. She looks sad,
yeah, little
but
phased,
she continues to walk. She walks away.
Yeah, she walks away. From there, we're back to Lily.
Yep.
We're back to Lily arriving to Amaya, heading to Dev's. I guess in the back lot at Amaya.
Yeah. She gets through security and everything too.
Yeah, she gets through okay, which is because she's allowed to.
Because
they call
boss.
and let him in. Yep, or let her in, and then she gets to Dev's, walks through. Stuart is standing there like,
Oh yeah.
like Stuart's sitting there with, and you could tell like he also has seen it. He knows what happens. He knows what's about to happen. He just
He even tries to warn her to
tries
walk
to warn her.
away.
Yeah,
and she goes,
just
I
walk away
can't.
now.
I don't
She's
think I
like,
can.
No, I don't think I can. I gotta keep going.
So he calls her the elevator.
Yep.
Or the little
electromagnetic walkway.
walkway. Yes.
And she goes through, meets up with Forrest in the
Observation room.
and she's got the gun. He explains everything, shows her she wants to see what's going to happen,
Yep.
shows her what's going to happen,
Yep.
which ultimately results in Lily shooting Forrest in the face.
Yes. In the little
Inside of
electromagnetic
the
walkway.
electromagnetic walkway, which is an elevator that moves on a horizontal plane inside a vacuum.
Yep.
When she shoots that bullet through Forrest's face, she should have picked a much more meaty area
No kidding.
where the bullet wouldn't go through. But she shoots him right through the eye socket, which is, he's all soft till you get to the back side of the skull. And it goes right through the glass, which breaks the seal of the vacuum and causes the system that's controlling it to fail. The elevator crashes down. Glass breaks. Katie watches in horror from above, and Forrest is dead. Katie is watching from above. Lily crawls out and dies because, just like if you were in outer space, which is a vacuum,
Can't really breathe there.
no. She would have died a lot faster, though.
I think so too.
Yeah, she would have froze to death, too, right?
Well, it depends on the heat more than
That's
anything
true.
else.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
we're talking air. But
lungs would have been sucked out through her nostrils.
He would have been interesting. It would have been. It wouldn't have
It would
been.
have been. It would have been like Arnold in Total Recall, where he's out of Mars and like his
Actually,
eyes
never,
suck right
never
outside
seen.
of her.
I've never seen the Arnold version.
Oh
Never seen the
my!
Arnold version.
I think we might have another episode.
Never seen the
throwback
version.
Total Recall.
Yeah, I've only seen the remake. That's the only one I've seen.
That one's not too bad either. But
Yeah.
not
But anyway.
like the first one. We've digressed. So and that is what we see Lily crawling across the floor. That is the last thing that the machine predicts.
Yep.
And so this is what what Lily is seeing is going to happen. So now we're back in the observation room. Lily is very upset because
Yeah.
I think she realizes that, oh, I did cross this line. I did kill
I can't. Yeah.
Forrest, and I watched myself die, and this is what's going to happen in the next couple moments.
Yep.
So they
and it
leave.
follows. It follows exactly.
Exactly.
It follows exactly the same words, the same like motions with the gun.
Yeah.
Everything
So
follows
they
exactly.
come out of the observation room. Katie's sitting there. They have a quick interaction with Katie. Forrest
get
lets
into-
her know that, hey, it's gonna be okay. We've seen this. We've watched it. We know what happens. It's gonna happen. They open the elevator doors. They both get in the elevator, and Lily decides that she can choose.
Mhm.
And in the moment in which the door should have closed and Lily would have shot Forrest, Lily takes the gun and tosses it out of
The elevator.
the elevator. She made a choice
Yep.
that changed what happened. And
Forrest is horrified.
yeah, like this should not have happened. Nothing has happened up until this point
That computer did not predict.
that the computer didn't predict. And so Lily has broken the laws of this universe.
Mm-hmm.
And presumably.
So as the elevator comes across with Lily and Forrest is horrified because she changed something.
Katie has a very similar
Katie's
look,
also
like,
terrified
what
too.
What the heck?
So as it comes across, it's about to dock with the side with Stewart on it, the exit. Stewart logs in and disables the elevator.
Yep.
And he disables it and causes it to crash.
Right. So Stewart, this ultimately, I think. Well, we'll talk about this in a minute.
Yeah.
So Stewart disables it, and we see the same
Same
elevator
thing.
crash. Glass breaks. Forrest and Katie both
Suffocate.
in the vacuum.
Yeah.
And Katie actually crawls to the same spot, and she dies.
But Forrest also tried to crawl too.
Yeah.
Which was not predicted by the computer.
Right. Or at least not shown to us.
That's true.
Right. At least not shown to us. Well, it didn't
It was
predict.
shown.
It didn't predict Lily throwing the gun. So,
Yeah.
and then from there, we kind of see Forrest in like what most people seem to say the afterlife looks like. Like
Yeah, the little
bright lights, wide area. Yeah. So we see him kind of, and we see information packets.
That's what it seems like,
floating
yeah.
around Forrest as he's being reassembled in the observation room, and we see him discussing with Katie about uploading at this point, uploading his consciousness, uploading Lily's consciousness to the system, and then we see Lily wake up.
Like
We see
while
a scene
she's
of-
looking outside.
Yeah, we see a scene that we saw at the very beginning of episode 1 of Lily looking outside, and then we see the moment that Lily's consciousness is
Like
brought back into this
reinserted.
version of Lily, and she's freaking out. Her breathing is heavy because that's what was just happening. She was just suffocating.
Exactly.
And then she realizes that she's back in this memory. And so she repeats what we see in day 1, although it's very strange to her because she remembers this all happening in a kind of a deja vu setting, which is interesting that there was a movie called
Deja Vu that deals with
about
quantum computers.
and time travel and stuff like that. And And so we see her go through all of her day the same way. We see her get to where she leaves Sergey, and she changes things. And she goes, "I want to see your phone. I want the Sudoku," and it is still the same. Like Sergey is still the same Russian operative. Like the Sudoku's there. He's very defensive. He goes into his meeting, and she just skips out on going to her place. She goes straight to Deb's, and when she gets out of the forest where the Deb's building should be, it's not there.
Yep.
It doesn't exist. But what is there is Forrest with his wife and daughter, and that means that in this
She learns that in this simulation,
Forrest's wife and daughter are alive. There's no need for devs, although there's still a tech company that's working in quantum computing. They're not doing the dev system
as committed. He was not as committed to
right
it as when his
Wife
daughter
and
and wife died.
Yeah, and so Forrest explains to Lily that we're in a simulation.
Yep.
We're in the system, and right now we're living our best lives. We have the ability to choose because we are the only ones that knew what happened in the previous life. Everybody else doesn't know what's going on. So she leaves Sergey, she goes to find Jamie, and
She hugs Jamie.
Story ends. But Forrest did tell her too that
Yes.
that we're living in this simulation, but there are simulations of every possible theory because Lyndon was right and I was wrong, and the multiverse is real and it does exist, and so.
And then we end on her hugging Jamie, but before that, Katie
we zoom back to
is showing
the original storyline.
Yes.
Where Forrest and Lily died, and the walkway is now like a plastic tube walkway, like X2 with Magneto's plastic prison.
Mm-hmm.
And we see Katie and the senator.
The senator.
Who's there, who wanted oversight into devs. And what does Katie ask for? She
asks to keep the lights on.
Yeah, for the government to help them keep the lights on.
Yeah.
So that the system stays on, which would in theory keep Forrest and Lily
alive.
Alive, yeah, or at least their consciousness is alive. Until Katie can figure out what to do, I guess, or just sit there and watch them forever.
Or as implications to fix it.
To fix it, yep. All right, so that's what happens.
So now let's talk
about
all the in-depth
implications and theories. So I loved this. I thought it was great.
I really liked it too.
I liked Ex Machina. I liked Annihilation. Alex Garland does some really cool stuff.
Yep.
I really loved this story, and my brain went in 1,000 different directions, and I've already got the sequel book ready for Alex Garland to write. I've got the sequel series ready for Alex Garland to write.
Yep.
It would be super cool. I've already got things working in my head, characters.
So Alex Garland, if you're watching, and we know you are,
Yep.
Go ahead and contact us on our contact page.
Yeah, because all of this is from this moment on is calculated nonsense's IP.
Yep.
So,
We're
but
good.
we will gladly gift it to you.
Yes.
If you just do it.
If you just do it properly, we'll gift it to you.
So,
one of the biggest implications is, like you said previously, the machine becomes sentient.
yep.
The quantum computer becomes sentient.
Yep. So Elon Musk, who is sometimes considered super crazy, but he's a very smart dude, has come out a number of times and talked about how artificial intelligence is like will probably be the demise of the human race. And he invested in a number of AI projects not because he had any interest in AI projects, but he wanted to be able to have his finger on them.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want. At some point, the machines will become smarter than we are, and in a lot of cases, they already are. They're just not sentient yet. And one of my thoughts about this is that so the machine quit predicting because the machine itself realized it was flawed. And I think that the story ultimately was trying to tell us that it was flawed in the Linden scene, because in that multiverse theory,
Yeah.
there would be a situation, or there would be a version where the outside forces wouldn't have caused Linden to fall, and Linden would have rocked forward and presumably climbed over and walked away with Katie. And there was none of that shown. So what I believe we were watching in the Linden scene was the system showing us all the possibilities. And when that possibility didn't arise, I think at that point to the viewer, it should have shown that the system is flawed.
Yeah,
Or
because
the system has a flaw.
the multi-world theory is that everything that could happen,
Yeah.
will happen and branches off.
Right.
And no version was shown
Right.
where Lyndon left with Katie.
And then we are directly shown that the system is flawed in the end sequence where Lily tosses the gun out of the elevator. And at that point, when the system is now realizing that it is flawed, because it just so this system, even it's a quantum computer, it's running processing more qubits than it's even possible.
A number not worth expressing.
Yeah,
is what Forrest said.
it's running artificial intelligence to go through and predict everything. And so that to run at that level, this artificial intelligence would have to be virtually sentient. And so once it realized that
It made a mistake.
it made a mistake when Lily threw that gun out, like any normal teenager would do, it decided, I'm not predicting this stuff anymore. I'm done.
I'm flawed.
I'm flawed. But it was still going to be around for their consciousness to be.
So I think that the computer, the machine or the quantum computer, uploaded their consciousness automatically.
Yeah,
And
100%.
it is now running all the different versions simultaneously itself to figure out where its problem was.
Right.
So-
So consciousness, human consciousness, ceases. Well, at this point, we know, or we
Think.
can calculate or theorize that human consciousness ends at the moment in which we die. So, as we're watching the scene where the elevator crashes, they crawl out and they die, Katie is looking from above in horror. So, when we see Forrest talking to Katie, he's already been uploaded.
That's what I think.
Katie's
too.
standing above watching in horror. From the moment he dies, his consciousness is gone. So like Paul said, we maybe just me, maybe you two, believe that the machine itself uploaded
Katie and no, not Katie.
Lily
Forrest and Lily
Forrest's consciousness to the system itself
instead of Katie.
instead of Katie. Now, Katie probably allowed Forrest and Lily's memories to be put in.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what she did. She allowed them to remember their memories.
Of this version.
Via code.
But I think that the predicting is done.
Yeah.
The computer was stopped predicting because it's trying to learn what the computer did wrong. So it's no longer predicting the future.
Right.
And
At this moment.
At this moment. And what I can point to is that last scene where Katie and the senator are talking. Katie and the senator are talking, and Katie asked the senator to help keep the lights on. In order to do that, she needs money,
Right.
right? if the computer could still predict the future accurately, then Katie could just use it to manipulate the market.
Right.
And she could invest the huge sum of money that is now Amaya. She could invest into the market and help keep the lights on herself. She could perpetuate it herself. But since the computer stopped predicting, she can't do that. Therefore, she doesn't know what to do with investments, and she wants the U.S. government to help her keep the lights on.
Now, here's another really neat thought from that last scene as well. So when Forrest and Lily are in the system, they're talking about how they're the only two that have their memories, and nobody else knows that they are in a simulation. Then we go to the scene with Katie and the senator, and the senator asks Katie, who else knows about
All of
this? And Katie says no one. And so it can also be assumed, or it could also be taken that everything that we've been watching is its own simulation as well. And that maybe the consciousness wasn't uploaded to the system. Maybe they're already in the system, and the consciousness of Forrest and Lily has just been transferred from the current simulation to other simulations within the system. So a lot of different...
So, like, all of our universe is just a simulation being run.
Right. Correct.
And the computer itself just has access to all the simulations that are being run rather than just this one.
That's right.
Which is
really neat to think about.
Really cool to think about.
And so the other last thing that I guess we could chat about, that we didn't really talk about this part, but when Forrest and Lily were talking in the observation room, he talks about why they named Devs. And
this was
it was a joke. You know, Devs works because they're in a software company, and this is like the highest level of development, which devs could be short for. But it's a joke because the V is actually the Latin. If you take the Latin of devs, it's Deus, which is the Latin for God. And in a sense, with this quantum computer, they have created a God.
Which goes back to Stewart.
It goes back to Stewart, yeah. So once Stewart has realized that once Lily threw that gun out, and he realized what they've created a God. Lily has committed the original sin of disobedience. She didn't obey the God. She threw it out. Stewart, we realized at this point that Stewart is still on the same train as he was at the beginning, determinism, and everything needs to still run its course, and he needs to make sure it does. So that's where he shuts down the elevator, it crashes, and they die.
That's why he did it.
Because he still believes in God.
And determinism.
And determinism, yeah. And but so we learn that that devs is actually in their head short for Deus, which is the God in the machine, is
all-knowing
Deus
being.
Ex Machina, and we've already. So here's where the sequel stuff comes in. Now Alex Garland needs to write a story. So Alex Garland wrote the book Ex Machina, did the movie Ex Machina. Now we have Devs, which is Deus. Now Ex Machina ended fairly open-ended.
Yeah.
It could go anywhere. And Devs, fairly open-ended. We need Deus Ex Machina as the sequel to both Ex Machina and Devs, and intertwine those stories. What's to say that Ava from Ex Machina hasn't become a tech giant herself or itself. It's a machine, and knows about devs and intertwines those stories. And maybe they can pull the consciousness out of the machine, out of the
Pull
system,
Forrest out of the.
and Ava can create bodies for Forrest and Lily. You know, maybe Katie finds this out and does this. Who
partners
knows?
with them, or
But
or
Alex
a
Garland,
merger.
there's your
Sequel.
$100 million sequel movie / billion-dollar books. Who knows? I don't know. Deus Ex Machina, the sequel to Ex Machina and Devs.
That would be really cool.
I really
to watch.
would love to. Yeah, I'd love to see it.
That'd be fantastic.
Or just a sequel to either one of them.
Yeah,
Like,
either
come
one
on,
of them,
I mean,
honestly.
Get to work. What are you doing?
You got what?
nothing?
We've been off for what, a month now? I mean,
A month
For
This has been
coronavirus?
April.
Two
April
months?
to just July. It's almost August. Yeah, he's got had plenty of time.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
right.
bet it's coming up.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Or something cool at least. So.
Something cool would be nice.
But there it is. That's our review of the episodes, our discussion about what we thought and what we want to have happen. We hope you took the time to watch it too. It's a really
Well done.
interesting series. It is gaining traction because I think a lot of people were maybe like me and they saw it and thought, what is this weird looking show with the guy from Parks and Rec who's supposed to be a comedian and
playing a
this
serious
is
role.
goofy. This is just gonna be some goofy spoof of a tech show.
I think they did a good job.
Although the Silicon Valley was also kind of a tech show spoof,
That's
but it
true,
was
too.
great. But it was great. I would encourage you to watch it. It really makes you think, which all of Alex Garland's stuff makes you really, really think. And so if you haven't watched it, go watch it now that you know everything that's going to happen. Otherwise,
And let us know your thoughts
let us know
too.
your
Like
thoughts.
if we missed something or if something was glaringly obviously and we didn't see it and you saw it, let us know. Comments down below.
For sure.
Uh,
For sure. But for now we'll jump into the wrap up and tie things all together.
okay.
All right. So like we've already said, this is our video about devs, or a 2-part video about devs. Go watch part 1 if you haven't watched part 1, but you might be a little odd because you've already watched part 2. But or watch them both. Or watch Devs. Watch it again. Go if you haven't seen Ex Machina. Go watch Ex Machina.
Oh,
You'd
yeah.
probably love it as well. Annihilation is a little different,
Still good, though.
but still great. Go watch Alex Garland stuff. It really makes you think. But yeah, we talked about what we did last week. Paul went camping. I threw in a virtual axe throwing tournament. We went through Devs episode 5 through 8. We've given Alex Garland his next multi-million-dollar idea,
Sequel.
which Paul and I own the rights to via intellectual property. But Alex Garland will gift it to you if you will do it. But that's all. I
That's
got.
all. That's it.
Comment down below, like and share, and subscribe if you haven't. Otherwise, until next
Everybody,
time.
keep looking up.
That's right. Look at the stars. See ya.